Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Accuracy in America, brought to you by Accuracy in Academia. I am your host, Don Irvine, joined by my co-host, Brian McNichol.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to meteorological summer.
Yeah, today's going to be warm, and I think the rest of the week's going to be kind of hot.
Yeah, down south it's already hot. It's already up in the 90s.
Yeah, I don't necessarily want to turn my air conditioner back on, but it looks like that'll be a necessity very soon.
Yeah, it's coming. It's getting that way, and I guess today our average temperature reaches 80 degrees. Our actual average high temperature at Dulles. This is the first day the average is 80. It's also the day that Billy Joe McAllister jumped off the Tallahatchie Bridge.
Okay, so that's only for the old. That's only for the old folks.
That's right.
That was a great song, though. The whole.
It's a great song, and it's like there's all this mystery behind it, and did Bobby Gentry know something about this, right? Because it's all kind of weird in Mississippi and mysterious. So, yeah, it's a good thing. It was a great song too, like you said.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's interesting for today's trivia. That's nice of you to pull that out of your hat like that. That's great.
Yeah.
All right. Well, today is National Egg Day. Last week we had National Grape Day. I think like that. How about eggs? Bueno, no bueno.
Oh, bueno. I'm an egg. Like, how about those 60 packs at Walmart, man?
Okay.
I can cook eggs 9 ways from Sunday. So, I already had eggs for breakfast this morning. So, I'm big on egg day.
Good source of protein.
Good source of protein. Also, I think it's probably contributes some to belly fat. So, goods and bads.
This is the problem. This is the problem with food, right? I mean,
right. That's right. Dang old stuff.
Look. Right. Okay. So eggs, good, high protein. It's generally, there's some good things, but there's some other things, about it that are maybe not so good, and you find that it's pretty hard.
We've gone through these periods too, where eggs will kill you. Eggs are the best thing you can eat. Eggs will kill you. Eggs are the best thing you can eat. So it's like which scientist got the grant that year or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, we even had a big egg white kind of fad going through there. It's like, okay, you can eat eggs, but it's really better if you just do the white. And so even the fast food restaurants went to a lot of egg white sandwiches as an alternative for people who wanted to eat healthier.
It's like the whole notion of like I'm going to roll through McDonald's, but I want to eat healthy.
So we'll eat the plant-based burger, which is full of sodium, right? To make up for it. So and we know what sodium does. So it's like you can't win with a lot of these things. It's just in the end, it's you diet, exercise, all these things. There's a lot, and metabolism. Everybody's body's different, and it just metabolizes food in a different way. So you can't compare person A to person B. It's just not going to happen.
That's right.
So anyway, yeah. So it's eggs. I love eggs. I grew up eating poached eggs, which I still think are good.
Yep.
But scrambled eggs, which are relatively quick to make, definitely a go-to for me. I can't get enough of that most of the time. But yeah, eggs. I love eggs.
I can fry them, make omelets, all that kind of stuff. Casseroles.
Omelets. Yeah, there was a period of time which I liked them and didn't like them, and it's like I love them now, but sometimes I wonder with my high cholesterol and stuff like that. It's like how much am I harming myself? But then again, I'm going on 67. How much do I enjoy life? My father was always like, you need to enjoy your food, and how many more years are you buying if you say if you go vegan all of a sudden or something like that.
It reminds me of the Richard Pryor line. He said, "I don't want to be 90 years old laying in the hospital dying from nothing."
Yeah. Yeah, give me some more kale. Oh, that'll give me extra few days.
Yeah.
All right. Well, so yeah, eggs. We give them a thumbs up, so that's good. Uh, we have. I mean, there's still stuff going on internationally. I mean, the Iran war, the Strait of Hormuz. I was looking at some stuff. I mean, gas prices have drifted downward, which is good. It's nowhere close to where it really needs to be. I think to take it off people's minds for the election and everything like that, but heading in the right direction, though we may be at one of those, I don't know, tipping points or whatever, because, you know, even even if we, unblock the Strait of Hormuz, the amount of time it takes to kind of get things moving back again and all this is that it still won't necessarily drop prices immediately. We have a supplies are getting tighter, so that fuel, that feeds into things. Fuel supplies, airlines has been an interesting thing because of the jet fuel, and I saw these stories surface, even when I was going to Asia a few weeks ago. Well, it's been over a month now since I first started that trip, that the airlines were trying to figure out how to just hoard their gasoline, their jet fuel, and make flight adjustments. And
Right.
I saw a story where American Airlines is like they've canceled domestic flights, like I think from Pittsburgh to LA. I don't know how many people were flying it or whatever, but they're saying it's jet fuel. That is the reason, is that stuff comes up in short supply. Prices of airline flights are kind of out, just kind of just went right through the roof. But my wife has checked for some future trips, maybe back to Asia, and we're like, some of them are not there right now. And we're beginning to wonder whether or not that's a factor. That these flights have just disappeared. Maybe maybe once this thing is settled, they'll reappear. But it could wreak some havoc with jet travel for some flyers as well.
Right. That's right. And I think 72 ships got through the strait in the last week. The U.S. is escorting them. The U.S. Navy is escorting ships, and they're switching the insurance. Right. They're making it was Lloyd's of London for like 400 years. Right. And now it is like Chubb. It's American company. So there's new insurance being sold, and the U.S. Navy is breaking the blockade itself. So that's why you see the easing in prices. Like it's headed back toward normal. We don't want to do it this way forever, but right now, the oil's getting through the strait, but it requires U.S. Navy to accompany it through the strait. So the progress is being made. I think that Trump is losing patience with the Iranians. He keeps asking. He's trying to figure out who he's dealing with. They appear to have split into like three factions that are all sort of competing to be the voice that speaks for Iran. There's the Republican Guard people, which represents the mullahs, but their problem is they're not getting paid because the money that we're cutting off is the money the mullahs operate with. So there's the regular army, which is getting paid, but which is poorly disciplined and organized and not a factor. And there's what amounted to the civilian government, where the president resigned, and I think most of his cabinet has resigned because the other two have decided not to work with them. So, first of all, you got to get that straightened out. That's been kind of the problem Trump's dealt with all year, is who am I negotiating with? Who can sign off on stuff over there? So and I think that they're getting to the point where they're going to say we're going to finish this our way, rather than mess around it much longer.
So what about Trump's relationship with Netanyahu after the story about this expletive-filled tirade that he had for a phone call?
There's not one named source on that story. Two people report. Axios broke it. Wall Street Journal re-reported it with the same anonymous sources or other anonymous sources. Who knows who they were? But no one's put their name to any of that yet. So When you're talking about covering the Trump administration, if somebody doesn't put their name to the accusation, you can bet that the accusation is false. You can actually bet.
Yeah, and I don't think we've heard from Netanyahu on this either, right? So
right. No, I don't. The White House put out something that said, yeah, there's a conversation, and yes, Trump is asking Netanyahu to cool out a little bit, but this idea that this was a expletive laden tirade and all this stuff, that's only, no one has said that and put their name to it.
Okay, well, the story in the Middle East continues to roll along, and when it comes to the stock market, they seem to be relatively nonplussed, more or less.
Right.
With all of this,
I think the stock market thinks that. That's right. That's what they're trying to buy time. They're trying to make it look like we're, might force our will. They think the longer they can hold out against Trump, the more that public opinion will turn against him. The problem with that strategy is there is a floor. Trump. There's a ceiling to his support, which they're not at, right? But there's a floor, and they've not gone into the floor one bit. So it's about 41 or 42% of the people in the country. They support Trump almost no matter what he decides. And, that hasn't changed. Nothing has happened to that 41 or 42%. And that right now is enough in American politics to dominate.
Yeah. Well,
because they keep saying like how unpopular he is, but the Democrats in Congress are 20, 25 points worse. So.
I say one place you can run on, now the president, he has limited authority and power to do anything about economic policy. I mean, the purse strings are held by Congress and all of these things. I mean, he can throw out ideas, and Trump is full of, tons of ideas, some good, some bad, whatever. But as I was saying, the market they seem to have gotten over their fear of a lot of things going on over there. Well, even with these recent amp ups and some of the strikes we've had against Iran, hasn't really rattled the market all that much. I think because once they're looking 6 months, 12 months down the line, and they're thinking that things will get squared away.
Right.
You could theoretically ride the market's coattails. Like the market's done remarkably well thanks to AI and a lot of other things. And you could say to a lot of people, but the middle class American, the average American, it's like, maybe gas was a little bit higher, maybe the food prices were higher than we wanted them to be. Hopefully they'll moderate, and we can push those, push inflation down. But if you've been checking your 401k and other things, you should be looking pretty good right now, because it has really exploded. Well beyond anything I thought could have happened in such a short amount of time.
Yeah, investor confidence in the U.S. is pretty high right now. I don't know if it's all-time high, but it's pretty high.
Yeah, it is pretty high. And my wife is one of her favorite people now is Scott Bessent. She thinks a lot of Scott Bessent.
I do too.
They're not everyone in administration that in the cabinet and whatever are necessarily great at their jobs, but Bessent has been a good influence, I think, overall on Trump. It's you need some people who can kind of smooth things over, and it's interesting with Trump.
Well, you need some. I think it's kind of the other way. It's like Bessent is the architect of change. To me, he's the one who, he talks about, Trump calls him middle of the night. He's like, you up? You working? And Bessent's like, yeah. 1:52 on Tuesday morning. I'm always working. That's when I do my stuff. And so he says that, Trump has a lot of ideas, but Bessent is a disruptor. He is the guy, he's been thinking about, what he would do in this position for a long time. And so he's bringing a lot of ideas to this and a lot of pretty aggressive approaches to getting it back to a market-based economy where the markets produce the growth, not the government.
Yeah. And I kind of like how Trump has been, the administration has been basically putting out, people like Rubio and Bessent and things like that at press conferences, with the media and whatnot. And I have noticed, when I listen to certain podcasts, that there are a lot of the White House correspondents for these networks and whatever. Um, they can call Trump. I mean, to me, I find this remarkable. I don't recall hearing stories like this before, but you get this reporting from like a Jonathan Karl or whatever, and he says, well, I called the president and asked him these questions, and this is what he told me, and and this seems to happen time and time again with a lot of these reporters. I don't remember a pipeline direct to the president from the media, even though there's sometimes antagonistic, terms and relationships between them.
Journalists, who have the number, like you say, includes John Karl, includes people who are directly hostile to Trump. It's not just friendly reporters. It's like people all over the dial, and they call him all the time. I think when you're not seeing him on camera, he's almost always on the phone. The only time that he's sitting in a chair still, there's no one talking to him, right? You'll have, because at the meetings, it's like, he says his bit, and then 3 or 4 other people say their bit. And when they're saying he knows what their bit is. He went over it before they had the event, right? Right. So he's not listening for news. He knows the news, and he gets to relax. He gets to stop in a chair, and he dozes off. I think, anybody like he appears to sleep about 2 or 3 hours a night at the most. And anybody who lives that kind of schedule for very long, they're looking for places to catch a nap. Because I used to be like, I had a back problem thing. I couldn't sleep. And so and I couldn't breathe and all this stuff. And, 2 or 3 hours, I was lucky to get 2 hours of sleep at night. And man, every time I got a chance to sleep, meetings, whatever, back room, no one looking in my office, I was down there, doing that thing. Because, you got to cure that, or you will die. So,
yeah, no, I mean, you have to say that the energy level of the president is pretty amazing.
It's incredible.
Look at his age and everything like that, and what he does with regard to that.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I mean,
and it's like, and he's part of the, he's kind of an odd duck partner for Trump, right? He's a Soros organization alum. He's gay, married to a man. It's like Trump's supposed to hate all that, right? He doesn't hate it.
Yeah. It's the cabinet is not anywhere near as diverse as Joe Biden's was, but Biden's diverse cabinet, was a complete disaster. And Trump,
it was terrible, failures, and now here's a guy who actually knows what he's doing.
Yeah, and Trump has put together Trump's cabinet on the second term is so much better than the first term. I think he learned a lot, and so it's much more stable. I mean, we have some people leaving or being fired or whatnot, but it was far more chaotic in the White House the first time around.
Yeah, I wrote a piece recently, and the lead of the piece was when Trump came to Washington in 2017. He took over Washington like Jimmy Carter. Right. Jimmy Carter didn't know anybody here. So he had to trust a lot of the Washington denizens to give him, people to work with. And, he brought a few henchmen who were found unequal to the task, and they had to go. So the people he did think he could trust were, like Burt Lance, were taken right out of the government. And so he was dealing with a bunch of strangers who had their own agenda. And so it was hard for him to pull together, especially and Carter was not a strong leader, obviously, also. But in Trump's case, that it really hurt his first term that he had to take recommendations. Like you end up with a guy like Rex Tillerson, right? Rex Tillerson ran Exxon. He's not an idiot, right? He knows what he's doing. But that doesn't make him a qualified Secretary of State. They're different skill set. So and that's just one example. Now he has people who know something about what they're doing, and have a very clear roadmap of what they want done policy wise. That's the other thing about Trump is they're a lot more thorough about what exactly they want done at the housing, urban development, and commerce and so forth. They've got a list. Cut this thing, add that thing, right? And so that they can go down and work on. And so You know, they are more qualified people, and they are they're task oriented. They're on task. They're given stuff to do, and they're doing it.
Yeah, I mean, Bessent and Rubio have probably been two of his best picks. I mean, they're really strong and capable. I mean, and look with Rubio. I mean, it kind of revives his future presidential hopes.
Yeah.
Down the line here. So we'll be watching Rubio as he continues on in this. But he's done a great job, as has Bessent. So we had primaries. We're now into primary season, and I've got my ballot for Maryland, and I thought, oh, wait a minute, I got to get this thing in by the 10th. I think that's next week is the actual voting day, and I'm going to be kind of tied up a little bit, but it won't my vote won't matter a whole lot for the Maryland primary except to try to whittle down. But this is what happened. California jungle primary, tons of candidates running for governor. So they've got Steve Hilton, the former Fox pundit, leading currently right now, and they've got Javier Becerra, right behind him, and then Tom Steyer right behind that. About half the votes have been counted. It's going to take a while. It could take weeks before they get all the votes counted, and we really know where they're going. So I think Steyer is still in it as a result of that. You don't know how many votes there are, out there for him. I think anybody beyond Steyer, I think they're done, and it's just those three that have got a chance of getting to the top two. We went from having potential of having two Republicans running, and facing off to, now we'll have, looks like we may have a more traditional Republican Democrat type of thing. But Hilton's not out of the woods yet, right? If you only got half the votes counted, and it's California, we'll just have to wait and see, which way that swings. We've seen House races that all the votes get counted.
2024, those 4 Orange County districts, the Republicans were ahead for 2 or 3 weeks after the election, and all of a sudden, just enough votes were found to overturn.
And I'm not going to get into any conspiracy theories about voting in California, except that California's voting is just terrible. That
it can't be weeks. It'll be weeks before we know who won. No,
right.
That day, that night, maybe the next morning.
Yeah, I mean, you have to know within 24 to 48 hours. Okay, yeah. I mean that has got
to otherwise, whether you're monkeying with the numbers or not, it looks like you're monkeying with the numbers.
Yeah. I mean, because the suspicion will be cast upon the validity of election as if things start to shift dramatically because you can't count. You don't have all the votes counted within a couple of days. I mean, California is just one of the worst cases of this, and being run by the Democrats, I guess they don't really care because it tends to favor them because they need to remedy this situation, but they're obviously not interested in doing that at all. So it's a horrible system. So cross our fingers. Maybe Steve Hilton maintains his stays in the 1-2 arena there and is able to face off. That in and of itself would be remarkable to have a Republican, up there doing that again after Schwarzenegger kind of screwed the pooch with this old jungle primary stuff that he helped push through and kind of really spelled the
demise of Louisiana. Because that's where you go to look for good government.
Yeah. Louisiana, as far as I know, Louisiana has had that system forever, right?
Well, no, it was, it was, I guess, in the 80s or so. They got, it was getting, like when I registered to vote in Louisiana, it was 35-1 Democrat. And it is sometime this year, Republicans will finally catch up with voter registration with Democrats in Louisiana. I mean, everybody thinks that it's a Republican state. Trump won about 32 points last time. It was his biggest margin of victory in 2020. The election he lost in 2020. So he didn't win any state by more than he won in Louisiana. And now, the state is finally the voter registration is flipping to majority Republican. a little known thing. But we were talking about California. Okay, the other interesting election out there is the mayor of Los Angeles,
right?
Where you have a guy who's going after Karen Bass and saying, decline is a choice. Our city doesn't have to be like this. We can fix it up. We can clean things. We can just make stuff better. We can address this problem with the fire. We can do these things if we're not just running, traipsing around Africa and, all the other stuff she does that doesn't have anything to do with helping LA. So I'm interested to see. I haven't seen any returns on that one at all, but I'm sure at some point they have some kind of count, right? Have you seen anything?
Yeah. The initial count has Bass at 36%, and then what's this guy's name?
Platt. Spencer Platt.
Yeah, I don't want to get him confused with the guy in Maine.
That's right. That's been bugging me too.
Yeah, right. I was like, wait, you got two guys with similar names.
I think the guy in Maine is Plattner,
and this is Platt.
And he's Pratt.
And this guy is this guy's a reality TV star. He lost his home in the fire. Yeah. So I think he was at like 29%, and then the progressive, who used to be a Bass supporter, he's got a handful. He's got like maybe 8% or something like that. I mean, so she'll be out of it. But it's first time in 10 plus years that that they've had to have this runoff situation where in a sense of where the incumbent did not get 50% of the votes. So I do think that is somewhat telling. I still think that Bass is kind of in the driver's seat, but a good campaign effort by the Republican here could flip this thing.
Yeah.
And people in LA, I think there are people who are tired of what's going on there. What has Bass done for them, right, in the time she's been in office?
The fire kind of exposed that how little the city was doing to help people.
Yeah. So I mean, the fact that he got the number of votes that he got, should worry her to the degree that I don't expect the progressives' votes to swing to him necessarily, but they don't necessarily those big people may just sit it out because they don't like her anyway, right. And so I don't know, this is going to be one of those tricky little things to see in terms of trying to figure out what are the voters thinking about this. Now, Bob threw this in here in between. I kind of like this in a way. I mean, why not? I mean, I know we'll talk about that'll bring up more calls of disenfranchisement from the liberals, but say you give it a 48-hour or 72-hour deadline. The votes that are counted and cast, at that point in time, become the final result. We are not dealing with this for 3 weeks or 4 weeks.
Right. You
can count all the rest of the votes if you want. You can tell people we've counted their vote, and you can count their vote, but basically set some kind of hard and fast deadline. Because one of the problems in California is just that if you're mailing it in, it's the postmark, right?
It's California. It can arrive 5 days after the election.
Yeah.
You can mail it after the election then, and that's nonsense.
The ballots need to be in by election night. That's it. That should be a hard and fast rule. If people go out to vote in person, those votes all fine. But if you're mailing it in, your ballot needs to be in on election day, night, and that's
you're asking our forbearance anyway, right? By being allowed to mail it in instead of showing up on election day. So if you can't mail it in on time to get it there by election day, we don't count your vote. That's a perfectly reasonable accommodation.
Yeah, but the Democrats love this system because it definitely benefits them.
Yeah,
in the long run. We also had primaries out in Iowa. So Trump had Representative Feenstra, who he had endorsed, and he lost. So every once in a while, a Trump-backed candidate loses. I don't know whether or not Feenstra was strong enough, or whether or not the other guy.
Feenstra has his entire political career has been narrow victories in strong Republican areas. He's underperformed his entire political life. And so, that this happened is not surprising, right? He's not that popular in his own district. Now, I will say this about that. It does show you something that needs to be thought about. We're down to about 12 to 15 toss-up districts in the whole country, right? There's about the Democrats. I mean, the Republicans need to get like one or two of those to retain control of the House. So they got about 216, 217 seats pretty much locked down. You got to get to 218. So, but of those 11 or 12, I think 3 or 4 of them are in Iowa. So Iowa is a disproportionate part of the picture here. So that a Trump candidate lost, even Feenstra, is troubling for that, because it means that you may not have the strength to hold those seats. And those are some of the most competitive seats in the country.
Yeah. So I mean, this is going to be, it'll be an interesting election. I mean, we won't, we obviously won't know until election night, or just in some places election month, where the balance of power, really will lie in the House and in the Senate. The Senate's in better shape, I think, though. But you never, we still have several months, and anything can happen. That's the one thing can happen and just tip the balance the other way.
That's right. And then you're talking about the gas prices. Gas prices keep coming down, then it's not going to be a problem.
Yeah, it'll help, because as we've said before, I mean, that affects everything. I mean, the transportation costs of you go to the grocery store and you see stuff that is that's just risen. Part of it's supply and demand. The other part of it is the component of transportation, which makes up a large part of getting food to your grocery store. So in the last couple of weeks, we've had some interesting things with the Democrats here. We had, they kind of reluctantly released their autopsy of the 2024 election, and Ken Martin got pilloried for that. And then we have now the Jill Biden memoir, the new memoir. It's just, it's these things are kind of head scratchers in a sense. It's like, none of these things are good for the party. I mean, Dr. Jill, she's not doing anybody any favors here. It's like, where you kind of look back and say, it's like, we kind of knew this, and you helped cover up Joe's condition.
And now you're grifting your book and your story, and gross, right? not classy at all. The other thing about it, she says in the book, I guess the highlight of the memoir is that during the debate with Trump, the disastrous debate with Trump, she thought he was having a stroke on stage, right? So, like, I got that, I happen to be one of the people who I've seen my spouse have a stroke. I've watched it happen, right? And we did not just let her go on. We took her to the hospital. Like, we rushed her on over there. It was vital and quick and decisive. And she was like, well, I'm not sure. And I'm like, shut up. We're taking you, and because she had to go, we could tell, and she had there's that shot that you can take that, like, you get the last, if you do it in time after the onset of the stroke, it keeps you from having a lot of the worst effects. So we had to rush over there and get that shot and so forth. So if you saw your husband out there having a stroke and you just sat there and watched because, hey, my position as first lady is hanging here, my 27 staffers and my limo rides and my shopping trips and my grifts from his, selling policy outcomes through Hunter and others, all that dries up if I do anything to save my husband from a stroke. Now think about that. Think about the morality, the ethics of that, right? That's who we're dealing with. That's a big part of this. It's like one side has, God and ethics and a sense of right and wrong and decency, and the other side sneers at that, right? And this is a case of that. Like, we don't, you can really kind of tell the way she looks and deals with him and talks about him, that he was very much a commodity to her, an opportunity to her, a way for her to gain success, aggrandizement, whatnot. So, and this is of a piece with that. I don't think you can seriously deny it. Like, really, I mean, one of the worst, like, people talk about Michelle Obama, she's not really crazy about America, right? But this is, that's not as, those are, I suppose I'll give her credit for legitimately held beliefs, and, she may see that and so forth, and she's probably not the only one. But Jill is just a cynical profiteer. I've always thought that, and this just kind of confirms it.
Yeah, I think you definitely have mentioned that before during all our time on the air. Just when we got to, anytime we talked about Jill and her and just her goal and her purpose and everything like this. The other thing too was, was President Biden's, prostate cancer diagnosis. I mean, she's saying that, he had, just the symptoms were there because he kept getting up and, 7 times a night, and things like that, because he had to go to the bathroom. And that's definitely a telltale sign of something is wrong. And, they didn't really do anything about it. I think it is true that, when you're over 70, the medical profession basically is not really testing for your PSA. But if you're exhibiting some symptoms, potential symptoms, if you're getting up that much a night and you weren't doing that before, you should tell your doctor, this, something's going on here. What's going on here? And, and check, because, the earlier you get to it, the better your outcome. I mean, I'm going through this, myself, though that it wasn't getting up in the middle of the night. I mean, it was actually diagnosed because I was having some back pain, and, this is when I learned that cancer is a very strange animal. That, you may have prostate cancer, but what it can feed into your bones and everything else, and cause other kinds of issues, get into your lungs. So people have cancer and they think, oh, it's just going to be, it's this type of cancer, and we'll treat it and deal with it as long as I can. But you have to you have to be vigilant and watch this kind of stuff, because it can basically move and jump and then become fatal, in an instant. Right. So yeah, she has not done her husband any favors whatsoever. The public should just, I mean, no one should buy her book. I mean, it's like, this book needs to have this book needs to flop, because this is just terrible, the things that she has foisted on the American public. All of this, yeah, as you said, the stroke. My father had a stroke. You're basically told you have got to get your loved one to the hospital ASAP, because time makes all the difference in the world as to the outcome, with that. And so, if he's having a stroke, yeah, I mean, is there anything that says you can't stop a debate? I mean, if someone's life is in danger potentially, yeah, come on, think about it. But no, yeah, Jill Biden, yeah, this is terrible.
And I guess, I think about it is, I guess the reason that she didn't take any action is, because that would have made him look old and feeble. Well, guess what? Only looking old and feeble.
Yeah, I mean, in the end, I mean, we all knew this, right? I mean, I've had that weekend at Bernie's feel for a while with Joe, over the last few years. It just kept feeling like, they were propping a guy up there for the sake of having him there, but he really wasn't there. And so they kept pushing this whole, oh, he's fine, he's just tired or whatever. But now we're seeing a little more light being shed upon some things there, and this was a disaster for the Democrats. I mean, between, you look at the autopsy, and which they've been hoping to, they want to bury that, they want to, and because they want people talking about that, and then they've got this, which is a whole nother issue for them. The 2028 and the presidential campaign is not going to go well right now at this stage. When you look down the line,
let's talk about that report for a minute too. So what did it say? It said they were late. The change was a bad idea. They were on, the most important thing was, we talked about last week, they were on the wrong issues. Right? We don't want boys and girls sports. Right? Why are you pushing that? Why is that so important to you when we don't want it? Right? Here's the thing about it. Do you take up for the underdog? Are you on the underdog side? Sometimes, right? The underdog isn't always right. Being the underdog does not make you right, right? You could Hamas is the underdog. They very much deserve to be the underdog. and they very much don't deserve to win. Right? These are murderous thugs, and they've been murdering and terrorizing people for decades. So yeah, they're the underdog, but I'm not cheering for that. You know, that the Democrats they just want to identify the underdog. It makes it simple. They don't have to think about morality and right and wrong and anything like that. Just which one is underdoggier than the other one, and then you have who you're for, and then they start making the case around it. And, you know, that's how they ran the country, and that's how they would run it if we put them back in charge. And it's just as dumb now as it was then.
Yeah. So, you know, any voters out there that are thinking about trying to make some changes in the midterms, is like, think about it.
Yeah.
just think about the way the country.
The other thing is like, you know, I think at some point, you know, because if you look at what the Democrats are campaigning on, right? If you get it all the way out of them, what they would do is, you know, pack the court, go to 13 or 15 or whatever it took to get enough of them and few enough of us, add Puerto Rico and DC so you get those 4 Democrat Senate seats, you know, stuff like that. So, I mean, you know, help the economy, you know, and reopen immigration and let people pour over the border again. That's the only 3 things I've really heard them say that they would do if they were in office. And, you know, none of this has to do with, you know, gas prices or food prices or helping my family at all. And you can say, you know, some of that's gone the wrong way because of this Iran war, right? It's some prices are up as a result, but you know, he's trying to win the war, stop the terrorism, which will save us a lot of money, and you know, get the prices back down. None of this is about, you know, feathering Democrat interest groups nests, right? It's not about you and me. The average guy is always way down the list with Democrats. They always have a bunch of stuff in front of them. And so, you know, that's coming out. People are seeing that, and they're not necessarily jumping onto Trump's train, but they're not for them. You know, that's why these voter registration things are what they are. It's all, you know, pro-Republican figures. And it's why, you know, aside from Representative Feenstra last night, Trump candidates have been doing pretty darn good the last few months.
Yeah, well, the Democrats are a bunch of hypocrites anyway, because, you know, you see these Democrats, you know, they've been trying to use affordability as one of their messages, you know, as prices have kind of spiked up. And yet a lot of them are the same Democrats that vote to raise taxes.
Yeah.
You know, and that's
when you say, oh, you're rich, corporations don't pay any taxes. You know why they don't pay any taxes? Because, you know, they get breaks for greening their buildings and all that kind, and hiring X amount of minority candidates. All these tax breaks, Republicans didn't give up. Republicans are not paying you to green your building, right? Republicans say, hey, you'll save money enough greening your building that you should do it for that reason. We don't have to pay you to do that. But Democrats do, right? So it's all, you know, sure, that's fine. Let's take away all those tax breaks for all that stuff and let them pay a higher thing. If you think that would be helpful, we'd be all for it, because we weren't for those things anyway. That's right. That's simple.
Yeah. So let's
get in charge, get us out of there, and then help their friends. And that's
right. It. Right. Okay. You probably feel differently about this, but I'm happy that Trump has backed off supporting the anti-weaponization fund. I think that was a complete mess. You know, it was. I don't see it being legal. It's basically Trump the citizen versus Trump the government. I still have a problem with what's left of that, which is the audit. You know, that they're immune from future tax audits and stuff like that. This just needs to go away. Okay. It also became a political, you know, issue that was potentially going to hurt the Republicans in November. And so I'm glad that he backed off. And what I heard that he said, well, the courts have said, you know, can't do it. So I guess we can't do it. You know, maybe he'll find a different way of dealing with that. I mean, I don't have a problem with him suing the government, you know, when he's suing the government as a citizen for leaking his tax returns. Okay. That's all well and fine. But the way this has been.
But if he divvies up the money to the people who are wronged on J6 bad.
Oh, come on. You know, look, but a lot of those people on J6 they're a bunch of idiots and they're a bunch of criminals, and they deserve what they got.
Yeah, I don't know about all that. There's a lot of people. There's a big group of people
with common sense are not going to go and do what they did. How they got treated is another question as to whether or not how
right, right. And what Trump was doing,
that I might have an issue with.
What Trump was saying, what Trump was doing though, is he's trying to address those people who legitimately, there's little old ladies they let in. The little ladies are walking through. Oh, we're walking through. The cops are shaking hands with them, and they're getting 3 or 4 years in jail, and they're in their 70s. Right? That's not right, and they're sat in solitary for 8 months before they even announced any charges. Right? That was not right, and so some of those people have some actionable claims, right, that they could go sue the government and get a heck of a lot more than Trump's little 1.776 billion or whatever that he was going to, out of his own pocket, a legal judgment he won himself, to give them. This could go way past that in terms of money. So it is there's a chance that this decision costs the American public more money, taxpayers more money, because paying settlements to the people who have legit, they were wronged cases, right, in this. So that's part of it. I see what you're saying about it was a political storm that may not have sufficient benefit to justify the damage of the storm, right? So you get out from under it, you don't have that problem. But and for the Democrats to get mad at someone for sue and settle cases is ludicrous, right? Because like the whole of American U.S. environmental policy for 20 years was leftist sue and settle cases, right? That's how they got it. Like the government would not impose these restrictions, right? So they would go to court and get a judge to order the restrictions. Then it's like, doesn't matter what you think, right? The judge has ruled that you have to do this. And they were, it was all fixed up beforehand. So the idea that like Trump sued himself and gave himself money and all that, that's an old playbook written by the Democrats.
Yeah. Look, if these people actually sue the government and they actually win, which is, who knows, you never know, how that's going to turn out. And if it winds up costing more, they actually put together a credible case, that's one thing, but on the face of it, I don't, there was no constitutionality that would have held this fund of the way it was set up. And so I think it needs to go through the courts and be adjudicated through the courts, and just let it roll where it is. Now, I don't want anybody rewarded for their behavior, on J6 in terms of going and damaging our property, on Capitol Hill. If they can sue and they can win a judgment on mistreatment and, denial of their civil rights because they were held for an extremely long period of time, that's a whole nother issue, and that's fine. But I think you have to kind of separate all that out and let the people go on that. It's just part of this is this, it's because it's the cloud of Trump. Trump has his fingers in here and he's trying to do this stuff. And I think you just go ahead and let the court system do what they need to do at this point, and let it fall where they may. Yeah. See, I mean,
it would have been, what do you call it? It would have been politically tough. Yeah. Right. But I think it came from a place of trying to do the right thing by some people who were wrong.
Well, Trump is famous for trying to reward his allies, and he's famous for going after his enemies. Okay. I mean, he's this administration this time around, knowing that he's on his last, he's got 4 years in total, to do things. He has gone with a vengeance, using the same lawfare that the Democrats used the last time around to go and bust up these people. And I don't agree with a lot of those things that he's done, with regard to that. It's like, look, you can. We have a system where you can reward your political allies and do certain things, because a lot of people get those. That's how they get their political appointments. Is that you worked on campaigns, whatever. You get picked and you get put into these nice little positions for a few years, and that's fine. But yeah, I mean, the Proud Boys and some of these other things, no, we can't have that. We cannot have them being given money at all. That's it. It's just, and they have to prove it. They have to prove beyond a shadow of a doubt in my mind that, anybody who was wound up, being squirreled away and jailed for their activity on J6 have a legitimate claim against the government for the way they got treated.
And if a Proud Boy was mistreated, Proud Boy has a legal claim too.
Yes,
doesn't matter what club you're in.
If he has a legitimate claim, that's fine, and I don't care. At that point in time, if they prove it, then I'm fine with paying them money for getting mistreated. No one deserves to be mistreated. I don't care what party they're at. I don't care what color their skin is or anything like that. The government should never mistreat a citizen. So
that's what this was about, was paying people who were mistreated.
Yeah, but I mean, the way it was set up is it's all a game. One point, the 1776, kind of play, the whole thing of Trump versus Trump, that whole thing was just a political nightmare. And I'm glad that they're going to put it behind them. And they've got to get in Todd Blanche, they just need to say, we're going to just not deal with any of this. We're going to scuttle the whole idea about the audits, that they're immune from audits. Like this. I mean, you can't just grant them immunity at this point for that. This has got to be taken on a case-by-case basis. If the government has had wrongdoing against the Trumps on tax audits and whatever, then the government should pay for that. There should, then maybe you grant
what they're paying. That's what
but you don't grant them like immunity in perpetuity. That doesn't make any sense. It's like you're giving them carte blanche. Forget it.
Well, I normally I would understand what you're saying, but the IRS itself has been at war with Trump since he came down the escalator. They've leaked his returns 3 different times. They've done everything they can to try to make him look bad. And he appears to be filing legal tax returns that account for all his income. So, in this case, I think you have a rogue agency that has to be reined in this way because they just cannot resist attacking Trump.
Yeah, so you fix the agency, but you don't give the Trump family even post-presidency immunity.
How do you do it then?
Well,
all you can do is say, leave these people alone. You have looked, you have tried to prove this, you have failed to prove it over and over again. You have harassed these people for 12 years now, right? So at what point do we say, your harassment, it's over. You can't harass them anymore.
He's had multiple IRS commissioners. The guy's the president of the United States. I mean,
right. If you don't do this, right, how long until the IRS, I mean, they leaked the return, like 3 months ago. It's not like they've washed this out of the system. It's still there. So how long before they attack him again? How long before they resume dirty tricks on him again? And what is his recourse? What should he do? Just let them keep doing this to him over and over and over?
Well, there has to be a remedy somewhere, but the remedy is not to grant him immunity forever.
So give me a remedy. Give me one that you would do.
Look, he's already shrinking the agency, so the chances that they're going to be able to go after him are going to diminish over time because you got
to ask yourself why Biden wanted to add 88,000 people. Like, what were they to do? Right? More of this? I don't want this.
So this goes back to a lot of the things that we've conservatives have talked about for decades about simplifying the tax code, right? So that you don't wind up with all these complicated tax forms. These audits are kind of ridiculous. I mean, look, I don't even have my tax refunds yet, and I believe my accountant filed the tax returns 2 months ago. I don't even know what's going on. The state of Maryland and there's the IRS has got a website that says, "Where's my refund?" So I go in there.
An interest-free loan you're making to give them time to pay the other interest-free loan they already took from.
Well, it is interest-free to a certain point. There's something in the tax code that after a certain point in time, they've got to pay you. I actually had, when they had all those snafus a couple of years ago, and my tax return, my refund got delayed. I got paid 8% interest on the balance until they actually issued the check. And so I'm sitting here going like, I don't know. The system, I've been in that system before where I could say, oh, okay, it's being processed. And then just a long, slow drip of waiting to say when we're going to get it. I go into that system right now and they say, we don't have your return on file. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Yeah. It's like, now I'm going to have to call my CPA. I was like, I've given it enough time. I'm going to have to say, so where's my return and what are we doing about this? Because the IRS, their website says they don't have it. And it's like, this is nuts.
That's right.
where's the state of Maryland has usually been really good. It's like, where's my refund? It's like, I want my money. And it's like, and at this point in time, they are interest free if they're claiming, I don't know where it is. Right. It's maddening. Yeah, at this point in time, I'm glad I'm not paycheck to paycheck kind of guy. So like, this is killing me, and it's like I'm going to be out on the street if I don't get my refund. But it's really annoying as heck. Quickly here as we get to the end, because we've been doing all these things. Bill Pulte, acting DNI.
Good pick. Excellent job.
Well,
the guy who knows
he's going to be in charge of 18 agencies. He's got no experience whatsoever but he is a great attack dog for Trump. He gets to spend 210 days on this job. I don't know. This isn't one of Trump doesn't need this pick. I mean,
he is a forensic accountant, and he knows who owns every piece of property in the country, how they paid for it, where the money came from. You don't think that's a guy to put in charge of national security at this point? You don't think that's a good, handy background?
I want a guy who knows about intelligence. I don't care about this part. He's already screwed up as far as I'm concerned by these, doing Trump's bidding by going after, Letitia James and Lisa Cook, because they're not going to hold up. In the long run, maybe those people made mistakes.
I mean, Letitia James was about the judge thought the attorney the prosecutor was improperly appointed.
Yeah,
it didn't have anything to do with the fact of the case.
Trump. I mean, look,
to show it, what they're doing is they're exposing the Democrat lawfare. Right, the judges jump in and say, yeah, you got her dead to rights, but we're going to pick up some little thing to.
Yeah, but like I said before, Trump is just taking their lawfare and getting his own lawfare. I mean, I know conservative friends that are lawyers. It's like they complained all the time about the lawfare under Biden, and you're like, well, what about the lawfare under Trump? It's not like it's not like just because they did it, we can do it. We have to be better than that and do it the right way. So I just another lapdog for Trump in a place that he doesn't need to be. He's fine where he is, and if he becomes the nominee, he's not going to get confirmed anyway.
I think he's just temporary, but I think he's a very good Pulte. I think he's a very good pick. I think this is a very good thing to do.
Bob, you and I are channeling well today.
Very effective weapon for the administration.
Yeah. See, I got a friend in Bob today.
You guys are ganging up on
my ally than yours.
Ganging up on common sense. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, we're common sense conservatives. Okay, like that's just it. I was like, I'm trying to be realistic about it. I support Trump. I voted for Trump 3 times. Okay, that's not on the record. That's not the. But I think we have to criticize the administration when they go down the wrong path and pick the wrong people and do things that can damage their election chances, in particular, coming down the pike here. So there's just like, overall, administration has done a good job, as I said before, of cabinet picks and whatever. But, on the other hand, he makes mistakes just like this. So I got Bob in my corner, so I'm good. All right. Quickly, judge ruled against the Donald Trump and John F. Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts, so they'd have to remove the name in a couple of weeks. I don't know. That's a hill you want to really die on. Just let that go. Which I think the Trump administration.
I think he's going to do it. But here's the thing about that. I don't care what they call it, right?
Yeah.
But it needs to be fixed, right? It's falling apart. It doesn't work. It's dangerous, right? And so, like, anytime Trump tries to do anything like that, like they're mad at him about the cleaning up the fountains and the pools and painting the reflecting pool and all this kind of stuff, right? It's like, do you want it to, the reflecting pool was gross. It was full of poop, right? And it was poop colored, right? And now it's bright blue and you can see it. And if people do something like that, you can see it and remove it and keep it clean, right? Keeping things clean is a lot easier than cleaning them up. So now he's gone all over DC. He's cleaned up all these statues and parks and gotten the tent people out of there and made the city a whole lot more livable again. And it's just driving people crazy, driving the left crazy, right? Do you know what the basis of the complaint against the ballroom is? Have you ever looked into that? Like, what did someone sued Trump? All the court action on the ballroom was based on a lawsuit filed by a woman who walks her dog by the White House once a month Once a month, she walks by the White House. It wasn't as good as the view. She didn't like this view as good as the one she did before. That is the basis of them trying to stop Trump from building the ballroom, which is, that's one of those things. It's like you're just being a jerk because it's Trump, right? We need a ballroom, right? They have state dinners in tents, right? The modern drone technology, you launch 200 drones, which are affordable. It's not even a hard lift expense wise. From Arlington during a state dinner, they're over the White House in 2 minutes, right? They're shooting through tent. They're not shooting through metal buns, bricks. They're shooting through tents. They're shooting through cloth, right? At the most important people in the world, right? And the Democrats think that is better than Trump building a ballroom. That's prefer because it's Trump. That's the things that we can't tolerate in the country. Right, I'm fine with Bill Pulte. I'm fine with the 1776 fund. That's the stuff that has to be stopped.
Okay, here Bob finally goes with you, and I agree with it too. I mean, aesthetic improvements; those are going to be those are all fine. And any lawsuit after the especially with the fact that the East Wing got torn down, it's like, so what? Yeah. We're going to get what we want. Okay. So just forget it, forget this lawsuit thing. I chuckle about all these improvements that Trump has been making, because I think he wanted to paint some of the statues gold or whatever, because that's just kind of his signature thing. And now, that people are having a problem with that. It's like, whatever. I mean, that doesn't bother me at all. I mean, he wants to make, what is it? He also wants to, make some improvements at the Korean War Memorial and things like that. It's like, why not? I mean, what's wrong with that? I mean, the reflecting pool, I think it will probably look pretty cool. I mean, I think the whole thing is going to be pretty cool. Yeah. So, you have to admit that. I mean, if there's a president you wanted for having, our 250th birthday for America, so this is like the guy.
He's the guy. Now, wait a minute. One thing I will say, what I wish you would not do is mess with the golf courses. He's talking. One of them is the one at what they call Haynes Point at the end at the East Potomac Park down on the river. And when I first moved up here, I went there a lot because I lived pretty close. It was the closest golf course I knew about. And it was cheap, right? You could walk for at night and the evening for 9 holes for $6. You could have a pool cart for $8, and like that was, I wasn't making a lot of money. That was good, cheap entertainment for me. And you go there and like in the evening, there's a putting contest, and there's people from all over the world putting and cheering and having fun and betting $1 and, all that kind of stuff. And, Trump wants to make it like a tour experience type of course. And that's not what's needed there. What's needed there is that's an everyman golf course. Like it's not for the rich and famous. It's for the poor people who work here, right? It's in some cases the underclass of society, right? And they need a golf course too. And so it's like, I don't think he understands the lure of those places and what they mean to DC. And I hope that he will just, back off, let the people who run it. People run it now. It's not perfect, right? The course has been in better shape before, but they're doing a pretty good job. And it's a labor of love. They love those courses and want them to survive. That's why they like formed a company to do this. So, they aren't in the golf course management business. They just wanted to help these specific courses. So if they need help them. If you want to make the courses in a little better shape, I don't think anybody would agree with that, but like changing the way they operate and making them look like Trump National out in Lowe's Island or whatever, that's not what's called for here. What's called for here is some maintenance plus basically.
I vote for mini golf. I grew up playing putt. It's like a lot of that stuff has disappeared, and I haven't played for a long time. But I used to love that as a kid. My father that was the one thing he kept taking me to all the time.
All right.
So all right, we got CBS fire Scott Pelley. He had a big tirade against against management, Barry Weiss, and and so the guy about 60 Minutes. So he's fired from 60 Minutes.
They called a meeting, right? And he went to the meeting, and it's like, let's discuss how to fix this up. And he was, a complete jerk about it. And so they're like, okay, we're not going to put up with that. Yeah. The world's not going to miss Scott Pelley. Like, there's a million pamphleteers. That's right. That's right. That's right. Rick DeLisi. He was a great PR guy. Worked at Lansdowne Resort.
That's funny that Bob brings up Lansdowne. All right, and then the last couple real quick things here before we wrap it up. So it's Pride Month, but there've been some issues that have popped up. First was the O'Keefe Media expose that caught Washington Nationals executive talking about not including one of the players into their social media because of his Christian views. And then the other thing was a story about how I think it was 9 NFL teams, did nothing at the launch of on June 1st, the launch of Pride Month, which has obviously irritated the LGBTQ community on this. So it seems like, the whole Pride thing is, is kind of, people are they're treading water, they don't want to necessarily back this as much as they did before. We've got Trump there. Yeah. You don't know what he's going to do, or saying, because Trump has had such tremendous success in fighting, the whole gay community, but particularly the transgender, the girls and the boys and girls sports and things like that. And I think the NFL I think they're understanding it's like, we can't, some of these teams are saying, we will support it, but we're not going to embrace it like we have in the past.
That's right. Yeah, it's the corporate support is way down. Agency support is way down. It looks like a lot of the money that Doge has rooted out of the system through USAID and other places has to do with that. And it's like it was government money being used to support Pride events and so forth. And now that the government money has been taken out of the equation, the Pride events are gone. Right, the funding for it's way down. The attention on it is way down. I was looking on Facebook the other day, and the only in Major League Baseball, I'm sorry, Major League Baseball, the only team that does not have a Pride event is the Texas Rangers. And there's like, we got to put pressure on Texas Rangers. Texas Rangers are like, it's not what our fans want. It's North Texas. So it's either evangelicals, or Cowboys, right? And ain't nobody really into that. Houston has a huge gay scene. It's like, Houston is, it's like got the second best theater. And I'm not saying that other theater people, I'm just saying it has the second best theater scene in the country after New York, right? It's a very vibrant cultural community. People don't think of it as that, but it really is. But Dallas is not like that. Dallas is a you think about what you think of Texans, that's Dallas. They live in Dallas. And so, it's not popular. And I don't blame them for not doing it. But like events all over the country, the money's drying up. The parades are being canceled, or they're much smaller, or so forth. It just, it was a fad, and it's kind of faded as a fad.
Yeah, I mean, can you imagine could you imagine like the Rangers holding like a vegan day at the park or something?
Right. Like when all they sell is barbecue.
Yeah. Oh man. We're gonna have a plant-based burger day,
Yeah. James Tallarico is throwing out the first pitch.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Anyway. All right. Well, thanks everyone for sticking with us today. We know we went a little bit over time, but we had a good spirited debate today, so it was great. Please, as always, stay safe and stay well. Remember, we live in the greatest country in the world. Do not let anyone tell you otherwise. And we're only a month away from July 4th here, so we're coming quickly upon our nation's birthday. And as always,
go listen to that song today. Yeah, today's the day.
Yeah, and as always, God bless America. Now I'll be off next week. I've got something to take care of, so we'll be back in 2 weeks, and we'll see you then. So thanks a lot, everyone.